What if I told you that youth unemployment is not just an economic problem, but a spiritual one? Think about it. We live in a time where millions of young, brilliant minds are sitting idle, degrees in hand, dreams in their hearts, but no direction in their lives. And here's the shocking part. In Islam, idleness itself is a form of poverty. The Prophet Muhammad warned us against it, reminding us that strength, talent, and time are gifts from Allah, and neglecting them is like burying treasure in the ground. So let me ask you, are we burying our youth? Or are we helping them rise? Youth unemployment is everywhere. We've seen young graduates applying for jobs outside their field, an engineer driving a taxi, a teacher working at a call center, or worse, some sitting at home, scrolling endlessly, waiting for an opportunity that may never knock. But Islam doesn't teach us to wait for opportunity. Islam teaches us to create it. Remember the story of Prophet Moses, peace be upon him? When he fled Egypt, alone and without resources, he didn't sit under a tree complaining. He served. He worked. He helped 2 women draw water from the well. That simple act of service opened the door to his next chapter. Do you see the pattern? Work, any honest work, carries dignity. Now, let's open another door. The Prophet said, the best food a man eats is from what he earns with his own hands. Think about that. In a world where everyone chases titles, salaries, and recognition, Islam flips the script. Dignity comes not from what you own, but from what you earn. So why are so many young people waiting for the perfect job? The perfect job doesn't exist. What exists is your effort, your willingness to serve, your ability to turn small opportunities into big ones. Imagine a farmer planting seeds. He doesn't stand over the soil demanding instant results. He trusts the process. He waters. He waits. And eventually, growth comes. That's Islamic work ethic, effort, patience, and trust in Allah's timing. But here's the hard truth. Youth unemployment also grows because of mindset. Many of us think, if I don't get a job that matches my degree, I've failed. But Islam doesn't measure success by job titles. It measures by intention, effort, and honesty. Do you know the Prophet himself worked as a shepherd before becoming a trader? A humble job. But that job taught him patience, responsibility, and leadership. It prepared him for greatness. So maybe the small job you look down on today is the stepping stone to your destiny. Let's open the final door. Islamic work ethics can break the cycle of youth unemployment. How? By valuing any honest work, no matter how small. By encouraging entrepreneurship, building solutions, not just waiting for jobs. By practicing excellence. In everything we do. By rejecting laziness, because time wasted is life wasted. Youth unemployment is not just an economic crisis. It's a crisis of belief. Do we believe in ourselves enough to act? Do we believe in Allah's promise that He blesses effort, not excuses? And so, to every young person here, remember this. You are not just job seekers. You are problem solvers, innovators, leaders, the future of this ummah. Walk out today with dignity, with drive, with the ethics of Islam in your heart, and you'll be unstoppable. Because the world doesn't just need workers. It needs believers who work. #6 key takeaways Islam condemns idleness and values every form of honest work. The Prophet himself worked humble jobs, showing dignity in all labor. Youth should not wait for opportunities. They should create them. Success in Islam is measured by effort, honesty, and intention, not job titles. Entrepreneurship and service are central to Islamic work ethics. True unemployment is not lacking a job. It's lacking purpose. Picture a young man sitting in his room, the blinds half closed, the light from his phone glowing against his tired face. He scrolls endlessly through social media, glancing now and then at job postings he never applies for, waiting for something worthy of his degree. Days blur into weeks, weeks into months, and soon he begins to feel invisible. He wonders why the world has forgotten him. But in truth, he has forgotten himself. He has fallen into the trap Islam warned us about. Idleness. The Prophet Muhammad once said, take advantage of 5 before 5, your youth before your old age, your health before your sickness, your wealth before your poverty, your free time before your business, and your life before your death. Free time, the very thing many of us crave, is actually a dangerous test. It can be a blessing if used with purpose, or a curse if wasted. Islam does not romanticize waiting. It dignifies striving. Imagine two people standing in a barren field. One folds his arms and says, "When the rain comes, I'll plant seeds." The other bends down, breaks the soil with his bare hands, and plants anyway, trusting that Allah will send rain when the time is right. Which one do you think returns months later to find grain sprouting beneath his feet? This is the difference between idleness and effort. Islam honors effort more than outcomes. A man who works as a cleaner, earning a modest wage through sweat and sincerity, is wealthier in the sight of Allah than someone who lounges at home waiting for a glamorous position while contributing nothing. The Prophet made this clear when he said, "It is better for one of you to take his rope, bring a bundle of firewood upon his back, and sell it, than to beg from someone who may or may not give him." That image is powerful. A person straining under the weight of wood, back aching, yet carrying dignity with every step. It is not the labor itself that gives honor, but the independence and honesty behind it. Think of the companions of the Prophet. Abdurrahman ibn Awf, one of the wealthiest men in Islamic history, did not begin rich. When he migrated to Medina, he arrived with nothing. Offered half of another man's wealth, he refused and instead asked to be shown the marketplace. There, with empty hands but a determined heart, he started trading small items until he built an empire of commerce. His story is a living reminder that work, even if it starts small, is the bridge from poverty to prosperity. Now contrast this with many young people today who say, "There are no jobs." The truth is, sometimes jobs exist, but pride whispers that work is beneath you. A graduate might refuse to sell books online, to bake bread, to deliver packages, because he feels entitled to an office chair and a title. But Islam teaches the opposite. The Prophet himself, the most honored man in history, herded sheep in his youth. If the messenger of Allah could guide flocks of animals across rocky hillsides, learning patience and humility, then no job is beneath us. What makes us great is not what we do, but how we do it, and the intention we carry in our hearts. Picture again that young man in his room. What if instead of scrolling, he walked outside with a notebook, listed the skills he had, and looked for the smallest way to use them? Maybe he tutors a child in math for a few coins. Maybe he fixes a neighbor's broken phone. Maybe he starts with nothing more than selling tea on a corner. Each act, however small, becomes worship when done with honesty and effort. Each step breaks the chains of idleness and pulls him closer to dignity. Youth unemployment is not simply about lack of jobs. It is often about lack of movement, lack of humility, and lack of faith in Allah's blessing upon effort. Idleness, in the eyes of Islam, is more dangerous than poverty itself. Poverty may empty your pockets, but idleness empties your soul. Work, any honest work, fills both. And when a generation learns to value action over waiting, effort over excuses, dignity over pride, then even the smallest job becomes a stepping stone to greatness. Imagine walking through the desert, the sun blazing down, the ground hot beneath your feet. You look up and see a young boy, not yet a prophet, guiding sheep across the rocky hillsides. His clothes are simple, his task repetitive, yet there is calm in his eyes and strength in his stride. That boy was Muhammad, the one destined to change the world. And yet, before leading armies, before delivering revelation, before shaking empires, he spent his youth doing what many of us today might dismiss as low-level work, tending sheep. Why would Allah choose such a humble beginning for the greatest leader in history? There is wisdom in this. Shepherding teaches patience, responsibility, endurance, and care. Each sheep is different, some stubborn, some weak, some restless, and the shepherd must guide them with gentleness yet firmness. Doesn't that sound like the qualities of a leader? This is the lesson hidden in his story. No job is beneath you if it shapes your character, if it teaches you skills that will serve you later, if it keeps your heart grounded in humility. Now contrast that with today's mindset. A young graduate, freshly out of university, says, "I can't take that job, it doesn't match my degree." Another says, "I'd rather wait than lower myself." But here's the truth Islam teaches us. Lowering yourself in honest work is raising yourself in dignity. Waiting, complaining, and refusing effort, that's lowering yourself in the eyes of Allah. The Prophet elevated the role of labor when he said, "No one has ever eaten better food than what he eats from the work of his own hands." Even prophets worked with their hands. Prophet Dawood was a king. but he earned from crafting armor with his own skill. If the greatest men did not see work as shameful, why should we? Think of a young man today who, while waiting for the perfect office job, begins delivering food on a bike. He pedals through traffic, tired, sweating, sometimes enduring people's dismissive looks. But every delivery is income he earned honestly. Every ride is dignity preserved. Every coin he takes home is blessed because he chose effort over excuses. Another young woman, unable to find work in her field, starts baking a home and selling bread to her neighbors. She faces long nights, flour on her hands, uncertainty about whether people will buy, yet slowly her small act of courage becomes a business. These are not stories of failure. They are stories of faith in action. The Prophet himself showed us that greatness begins with humility. Imagine him as a young man in Mecca, carrying goods across the hot markets, trading with honesty, building a reputation not as a scholar yet, not as a leader yet, but as Al-Amin, the trustworthy one. That reputation, earned through years of honest labor, became the very foundation upon which Islam spread. If he had refused those small, humble roles, saying, "I deserve more," how would people have trusted him later with revelation itself? There's another layer here. Small jobs build invisible muscles. A young person who works as a cashier learns patience in dealing with difficult customers. A waiter learns attentiveness and humility. A cleaner learns discipline. Each experience is shaping skills that a desk job alone cannot teach. Life is training you for greater chapters, but only if you accept the training. Refuse it, and you refuse growth. We must ask ourselves, are we too proud to take the very path that prepared prophets? When you reject small, humble jobs, you are not protecting your dignity, you are abandoning it. Because dignity in Islam is not about titles. It's about effort, honesty, and the courage to serve. So when you think of youth unemployment, don't just think of empty offices or missing job offers. Think of the mindset that waits for the perfect door while ignoring the small ones Allah has already opened. Remember the shepherd in the desert, guiding sheep with patience. Remember the trader in the market, carrying goods with sweat on his brow. Remember that the Prophet was not ashamed of labor, and neither should we be. Because sometimes the work you think is beneath you is the very work that will raise you. There is a story of two young men standing at the edge of a locked gate. One stares at it, sighs, and says, "If only someone would come and open this for me, I could walk through." The other looks at the same gate, notices the hinges, and thinks, "If no one is coming, I'll build my own door." This is the difference between waiting for opportunities and creating them. And this difference decides who will remain stuck and who will rise. So many young people today sit at home, scrolling through endless job postings, applying here and there, waiting for the email that may never come. They imagine life beginning once a company gives them a chance. But Islam teaches us that life has already begun. Opportunity is not something that appears from the outside. It is something we cultivate from within. Allah has already placed in each of us skills, ideas, strengths, hidden seeds waiting to be planted. The question is, are we willing to get our hands dirty and plant them, or will we sit idle hoping someone else waters them for us? The Prophet Muhammad gave us a timeless principle. The strong believer is better and more beloved to Allah than the weak believer, though there is good in both. Strive for that which will benefit you, seek help from Allah, and do not give up. Strive. Move. Do not sit still. Waiting for something to fall into your lap is not striving. The Hadith calls us to take action, to seize benefit wherever we can, to create momentum even in the smallest ways. Take the story of Abdurrahman ibn Aw. When he arrived in Medina after migration, he had nothing, no money, no connections, no house. He was offered wealth by his new brothers, but instead of depending on handouts, he said, "Show me the marketplace." With empty hands, he began trading small goods, piece by piece. He didn't wait for someone to hand him a business. He built one. That mindset transformed him from a poor migrant to one of the wealthiest companions in history, and more importantly, a man who spent his wealth to support Islam. Now imagine the modern equivalent. A young graduate spends months sending CVs, no reply. He feels defeated, maybe even embarrassed. But what if he turned his phone into a tool instead of a distraction? What if he used free platforms to tutor children online, design logos, sell his homemade food, or create digital content that solves problems? What if instead of waiting for the company to call, he started building something of his own? This is not fantasy. It happens every day. Around the world, Countless young people are launching small businesses from their bedrooms, creating income streams from their creativity, turning simple skills into survival. They are living proof of Islam's call: strive for benefit, don't wait. It doesn't always have to be about business either. Sometimes creating opportunity means volunteering, serving, showing up when no one asked you to. Prophet Musa, when he arrived in Midian, had nothing: no job, no home, no community. He saw two women struggling to draw water from a well. He stepped in and helped. That single act of initiative opened the door to his next chapter: a home, a family, and stability. What if he had stood back, telling himself, "This is not my problem, let me wait for something more fitting"? His story teaches us that opportunities often appear disguised as small chances to serve, and only those who act see doors open. The problem is that waiting feels safe. When you wait, you avoid rejection, you avoid failure, you avoid embarrassment. But when you create, you risk falling short. Yet Islam reminds us that even if you fail, the effort itself is worship. The Prophet said, if the hour comes while one of you has a seedling in his hand, let him plant it. Imagine that. Even at the end of time, with no future left, the command is to act, to create, to plant. If planting a tree is worth it at the end of the world, how much more worth it is creating something today when you still have a future ahead of you? Think of it this way: opportunity is like a locked chest. Some wait for a key to appear in their hand. Others learn to carve one from the tools Allah already gave them. The first group waits a lifetime. The second group unlocks treasure after treasure. Which group do you want to be in? Every prophet worked. Every companion strove. Every success story in our history begins with someone refusing to wait. And you, too, carry that same spark. The question is whether you will let it burn or let it die out in the silence of waiting. Because the truth is, opportunities are not lost, they are built. And those who build will never truly be unemployed, because they understand that every moment is employment by Allah to serve, to strive, and to grow. Close your eyes for a moment and picture two men. The first wears a sharpsuit, sits behind a glass desk, and signs papers all day. People address him as Sir, and his business card gleams with a fancy title. The second man pushes a cart down the street, selling roasted corn. His clothes are dusty, his hands rough, and no one calls him by anything but his name. If you judged by the world's standards, you would say the first is successful and the second has failed. But if you judged by the scales of Islam, it might be the other way around. The Prophet Muhammad gave us a profound truth. Actions are judged by intentions. Not by titles. Not by salaries. Not by how impressive your office looks. The true value of what you do is hidden inside your heart. Why you do it, how you do it, and with what honesty you carry it out. A street vendor who earns a single coin with sincerity and honesty may be worth more before Allah than a CEO who builds wealth on lies. Think of the companions of the Prophet. Some were wealthy, like Uthman ibn Affan, who used his resources to fund entire armies. Others were poor, like Abu Hurairah, who sometimes tied a stone to his stomach out of hunger. Yet the Prophet valued them both, not because of what they owned, but because of their sincerity. Abu Hurairah may not have had gold to give, but his effort in memorizing and preserving the words of the Prophet made him one of the richest men in history, rich in legacy, rich in contribution. That is success in Islam, not the number in your bank account, but the weight of your deeds on the scale. Now imagine a young graduate today, desperate for work. He finally gets a position, but it is not what he dreamed of. Maybe he is working in a small shop, keeping records, or cleaning tables. His friends laugh, saying, "All those years of study for this." He feels embarrassed, as though his worth has shrunk. But if he does his job with honesty, if he serves customers with a smile, if he guards his time and avoids dishonesty, he is in reality more successful in the sight of Allah than if he had a high-paying role filled with arrogance or deceit. The world may belittle him, but the heavens honor him. The Quran itself shifts our perspective. Allah says, and that there is not for man except that, good, for which he strives. 53:39. It does not say there is for man what title he carries. It does not say there is for man what degree he earns. It says what he strives for. Effort. Effort that is honest. Effort that is consistent. Effort that is connected to the right intention. A cleaner who strives to feed his family and remain independent may rise above an executive who cheats employees for profit. Let me tell you a story that happens every day but often goes unseen. A woman works as a janitor in a hospital. She comes early, sweeps the floors, changes the sheets, and mops the corridors. Patients walk past her without noticing. Doctors barely acknowledge her, but every swipe of her mop is preventing disease. Every action of hers is service. If her intention is to earn halal income and serve humanity, then her work is ibadah, worship. And on the day of judgment, perhaps her mop will weigh heavier than someone else's title. Contrast that with another scenario. A man lands a high-paying position in a company. His family is proud, his neighbors admire him. But he cuts corners, lies on reports, and cheats clients to maximize profit. Outwardly, he looks like success, but inwardly he is empty. The paycheck may be large, but the barakah is gone. His title may impress people, but it holds no weight with Allah. Which life would you rather live? One respected by men, or one accepted by the Creator of men? This is why youth must free themselves from the prison of titles. Too many refuse jobs because they don't match their degree. Too many sit idle, ashamed to take humble roles. Yet the Prophet taught us that honor comes not from the label but from the labor. When you work with honesty, when you strive with the right intention, even if the world mocks you, you are writing success in the eternal record. So the next time you feel small because of your position, remind yourself, Islam does not grade you by what's printed on your business card. It grades you by the effort of your hands, the truth in your heart, and the purity of your intention. And in that measure, every young person has the chance to succeed, because no one is excluded from striving. The world measures titles. Allah measures truth. And that measurement never lies. There was once a man in Medina, a companion of the Prophet, who came to him asking for help. He had no money, no work, and no direction. Many of us might expect the Prophet to hand him a coin or two, enough to get him through the day. But instead, the Prophet asked him, "What do you have at home?" The man replied, "Just a small mat and a wooden bowl." The Prophet had those two items sold, and with the money he instructed the man to buy an axe. Then he said to him, "Go and gather firewood, sell it, and do not come back to me for 15 days. The man followed his advice, worked with his own hands, and after some time returned not in poverty but in dignity, having earned his livelihood honestly. That moment was not just about survival, it was about planting the seed of entrepreneurship, about showing that even the smallest resource can become the foundation of independence if coupled with initiative and effort. This story is a lesson for every young person today. Too many believe that the only path forward is through employment by someone else, through waiting for a company to give them a chance. But Islam's work ethic calls us to go beyond waiting. It calls us to create, to innovate, to serve. Entrepreneurship is not just a modern buzzword, it is deeply rooted in our tradition. The Prophet Muhammad himself was a trader. He traveled with caravans, managed goods, negotiated deals, and built trust in the marketplace long before prophethood. His honesty in business earned him the title of Al-Amin, the trustworthy, and it was this reputation that later convinced Khadija, a successful businesswoman, to trust him with her trade, and eventually her heart. The foundation of his worldly success was entrepreneurship, built on trust and service. Picture a young man today, sitting at home, frustrated because he cannot find a job. He scrolls endlessly through listings, waiting for something that fits his degree. But imagine if he instead looked at what he already had. Maybe he knows how to fix computers. Maybe he can cook. Maybe he has a gift for design or for writing. Instead of waiting, he could turn that skill into a small business, even if it begins with one customer. That first customer leads to another, and slowly a spark becomes a flame. This is entrepreneurship, and it begins not with capital, but with courage. Entrepreneurship in Islam, however, is not just about making money. It is about service. A business that only enriches the owner without benefiting society is empty in value. The Quran praises trade, but it also warns against exploitation. The Prophet said, "The truthful, honest merchant is with the prophets, the truthful, and the martyrs." Notice how high the status is, because a merchant who serves with honesty and fairness is not just providing goods, he is building trust, feeding families, strengthening communities. His work becomes worship because it benefits others. Think of a young woman who starts selling home-cooked meals. At first, it's just for neighbors. Then it expands into a small delivery service. Every plate she serves is not only income for her household but nourishment for another. Every transaction is service wrapped in sincerity. Another young man repairs bicycles in his community. He does not just earn a living, he keeps people moving, saves families money, and becomes a trusted figure in his neighborhood. These are small acts, yet they are the heartbeat of society. They reflect the Islamic principle that the best people are those who are most beneficial to others. Entrepreneurship is also freedom. It frees you from dependency. It frees you from waiting on someone else to define your worth. When you create, you are not at the mercy of rejection letters. You become the architect of your path. And when you align that creation with service, you turn work into ibadah. The danger of unemployment is not just financial, it is psychological. It convinces young people that they are useless, that their time has no value. But entrepreneurship breaks that lie. It reminds you that even with the smallest tools, you can contribute. Even with the humblest beginnings, you can build. The axe of that companion was nothing extraordinary, yet it became the key to dignity. What is your axe? What skill, what resource, what idea are you ignoring that could change your life if only you picked it up? In the end, youth unemployment is not solved only by jobs created from above. It is also solved by courage created from within. When young people embrace the entrepreneurial spirit of Islam, when they see work not just as money but as service, then they stop being job seekers and start being solution makers. And a generation of solution makers can never remain idle, because they carry the tools of both survival and service in their own hands. There is an emptiness that creeps into the soul when a person wakes up with nothing to look forward to. The alarm rings, but there is no urgency. The day stretches ahead like an endless desert, and though hours pass, nothing meaningful is achieved. This is not simply being out of work. This is being out of purpose. And Islam warns us that this is the most dangerous form of poverty. Not poverty of money, but poverty of meaning. The Prophet Muhammad once said, take advantage of 5 before 5. Your free time before you become busy, and your life before your death. Free time, when left unused, becomes a heavy burden. It is like leaving fertile land uncultivated. If you do not plant seeds, weeds will grow. Many young people today complain of unemployment, but the truth is, some of them are not just unemployed, they are unpurposed. They wake up, scroll their phones, watch videos, and repeat the cycle. Days blur into months. And slowly, their potential dies, not because they lacked opportunity, but because they lack direction. Purpose is what transforms any work, no matter how small, into greatness. Think of a young man who drives a taxi. To some, it looks like a lowly job. But imagine he begins his day with the intention of serving people, making their journeys easier, and earning halal income to feed his family. Every trip becomes an act of worship. Every coin he earns is blessed. His work is no longer just labor. It is infused with meaning. Compare this with someone sitting at home, waiting for the perfect office job, dismissing opportunities as too small or unworthy. Outwardly, one is employed and the other unemployed, but in truth, the one with purpose is rich, while the one without purpose is bankrupt. There is a story of a man who complained of feeling useless. He said he had no job and no way to contribute. Someone advised him, if you cannot find employment, then create purpose. Go help your neighbor carry water. Sweep the mosque. Teach a child the alphabet. Do something, anything, that leaves the world better than you found it. That advice carried the essence of Islam. You are never without purpose as long as you can serve. Think of Musa when he fled Egypt with nothing. No home, no wealth, no plan. He arrived in Midian as a stranger, yet he found purpose the moment he helped 2 women draw water for their flock. That simple act opened the door to a new life. Purpose is often born in the smallest acts of service, and those who embrace it never truly remain idle. Youth unemployment often hurts most because of the way it steals identity. A young graduate begins to believe he is worthless because he has no job title to introduce himself with. He feels invisible in gatherings. But Islam never tied your worth to a title. It tied it to your deeds. A man who volunteers to clean his community, who plants a tree, who helps his parents, is employed by Allah himself. The Prophet said, the most beloved of people to Allah are those who are most beneficial to people. That is the true contract of employment, the one written in the heavens, not on paper. Look at history. Many of the greatest scholars of Islam lived lives of hardship. Imam Abu Hanifa was a merchant. Imam Malik sold cloth. They were not defined by titles or positions given to them by governments. Their purpose was to seek knowledge, to preserve it, to serve their people. And that purpose made their names eternal. They remind us that your job is not your identity. Your contribution is. Now imagine if every young person embraced this truth. Instead of saying, I am unemployed, they would say, I am employed by Allah to use my time wisely. They would spend hours learning skills, serving communities, mentoring children, building small projects, planting seeds for the future. They would never allow their days to pass empty, because they would know that the real unemployment is not absence of a paycheck, but absence of a mission. So when you feel lost, when you feel idle, ask yourself, what is my purpose today? It does not have to be grand. It could be to bring a smile to your parents, to teach your younger sibling, to share knowledge online, to plant something in the earth. But whatever it is, let it be filled with intention. Because as long as you live with purpose, you are never truly unemployed. And as long as your purpose aligns with service and sincerity, your work echoes far beyond this world, into eternity. My brothers and sisters, the time for waiting is over. The time for excuses is over. The time for saying someday is over. The only time you truly have is now. Every second you waste is a door closing. Every effort you make is a door opening. And you decide which future you step into. Do not wait for opportunity, create it. Do not wait for permission, take it. Do not wait for change, be it. The Ummah is not waiting for job seekers. The Ummah is waiting for builders. For believers who act. For youth who dare to turn their faith into fuel, their effort into excellence, their purpose into power. And remember this, Allah does not bless idleness. Allah blesses movement. Allah blesses sincerity. Allah blesses the one who says, I will serve, I will strive, I will not sit still. So rise with courage, work with honesty, live with purpose, and carry with you this truth. Real unemployment is not the absence of a job. Real unemployment is the absence of purpose. Find your purpose. Live it. And the world will never be the same.